Hi, let's talk about making a blues shuffle beat in Logic. There's certain things that we can do to make our drum programming sound more human and to reflect the human elements of playing. Now let's look at the setup first of all. I've created a new project and I'm going to change this EVP88 to EXS24 in stereo. In there, for me, it's under factory, but you should be able to find drums and percussion, acoustic drum kits, and studio tight kit. There's a couple of changes that you will need to make. I'm going to make my tempo a little bit slower from 120 to 115, and I'm going to change 16 down here to 12. That's quite important in terms of making a shuffle beat, and let me explain to you why that is. Logic automatically thinks that you're going to make your beats in 16ths with 1, 2, 3, 4 16th notes per beat. And it's called 16th notes because there are 4 semiquavers per crotchet. However, if I change 16 down here to 12, there's a difference. Now each beat has 3 notes per beat. These are now 12 notes. And that's going to give us that shuffle feel that is absolutely crucial for programming shuffle blues. These are the sounds that I'm going to focus on in this tutorial. Command and 6 brings up the piano roll. C1 is the kick drum. D1 is my main snare drum. I'm going to use another snare drum for quieter notes on E1. I'm going to use a hi-hat, F sharp 1, and I'm going to go up to D sharp 2 for a washy ride cymbal, and I'm going to use a slightly more defined bell sound on the same cymbal, the ride cymbal. That's F2. So it's time to now start making our beat. I'm going to start with the kick drum. With a blues shuffle like this, it's going to be a 4 on the floor kick drum, which means that we put a kick drum on the crotchet every beat. We're also going to add a snare drum, and I'm going to make the snare drum slightly louder by clicking on the keyboard, which selects all of them, hitting escape, going down to velocity tool, or I could press the number 9. That brings up the velocity tool with a little V there. Push it up to make it louder. It needs a ride cymbal. I'm going to put a ride cymbal on the quarter notes. Notice how the new notes that I put in reflect the last velocity that I made. I might need to make them a bit quieter. So far, so simple. We need to introduce that element of swing, and that's why I changed the quantize from 16 to 12, because when I put in new notes on the ride cymbal on the 3rd 16th note, here and here and here, and I make them a bit quieter, I'm holding shift, so I just select the notes that I want, escape and 9, make them quieter, and I'm hoping I'm going to get a bit of a shuffle feel. It still needs a bit of that human feel to it, like a real drummer. Now, a real drummer, when he's playing the snare drum down here, he'd probably also be hitting the snare drum in between the beats, but a little bit more quietly. And we call those ghost notes or grace notes. So on the snare drum, in fact, I'm going to use E1 for this. I'm going to put a note in on the 3rd 16th. And, right, okay, like that. And let's see. Yes, and here as well. Yeah, okay. I'd like to add some hi-hat, which I would use a pedalled hi-hat with my foot going down on the hi-hat. I'm going to use F#1 for that. That's going to coincide with the snare drum. I'm going to make that louder. Hit F#1 on the keyboard like this. That selects everything along the same note. Go to velocity, make it louder. Also, I'm going to add some bell sounds, which is on F2 here. I'm just going to add them in some different places. I'm going to add a little bit more definition to the sound. You can put those on any of the 3 notes per beat. If anything sticks out particularly, you can obviously use the velocity tool and just bring it down. The more colours you use, the more human your performance will be. Now, something I'm always talking about is if it's not on the line, it's not in time. So all of these notes are absolutely precise and completely in time. All the beats are hitting at the same time. Here's the thing. Actual drummers don't really work like that. In fact, if you really want to make a human performance, you need to move some of the notes off the line. So for instance, I'm going to take all of the snare drums here. I'm going to zoom right in really, really closely. And I'm going to move that snare drum ever so slightly off the beat. Just a tiny little bit. The hi-hat, I'm going to do the same thing. These imperfections add a certain human element to the performance. Okay, so for the last part of this video, what I've done is I've gone back to the original drum beat that I made, which was not quite the same as the one that you've just watched me do, but it's got many of the same elements. This one actually had 4 bars of drums in it. I wanted to make the drums a little bit more interesting. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how I did it because I'd like you to come up with your own ideas and experiment, but just to give you an idea, the first 2 bars have got those elements. It's still got the kick drum, it's still got the ride cymbal and some bell and the snare drum on the offbeats and some hi-hat. Little bit more different towards the end of the 2 bars. And if I switch to the next 2 bars, you'll see that I tried to do something interesting towards the end of the 2 bars. I've used elements of toms, which are these instruments that can make interesting fill-ins on the drums. You can have a look at this as a screen grab, obviously, but I'd like you to try and do your own interesting drum beats. The last thing I did, just to add that last little finesse, is I added 2 effects. I added a reverb effect, which you get to over here. I added a gold verb effect, which you'll find under reverb, gold verb. And I used one of the presets. The preset I used was called Soft Room. And also I added a little bit of compression, which squeezes the sound a little bit, makes it sound a little bit tighter, a little bit better produced. So I'm just going to play these last 4 bars again, and then it's over to you to have a go yourselves. Okay, well that's now ready for me to loop, maybe even make some more variations on that, and then I can start building up the rest of the band around it. So have fun and good luck.